Everyone talks about Stoic calm. Nobody talks about Stoic courage. But Marcus Aurelius, who spent more time on the battlefield than the throne, believed courage was the virtue that held all others together. Without it, wisdom is cowardice dressed in philosophy. Without it, discipline is just comfortable routine. This is the Stoic virtue everyone forgot. The Stoics taught four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. But if you search online for Stoicism, you get 1,000 articles about staying calm under pressure. You get guides on emotional control. You get techniques for managing anxiety. You almost never hear about courage. That's backwards, because courage isn't the opposite of fear. Courage is the engine that makes the other three virtues possible. Think about it. Wisdom without courage is just clever observation. You see what's right, but you don't have the backbone to live it. Justice without courage is abstract theory. You understand what fairness demands, but you lack the nerve to demand it when it costs you something. Temperance without courage is comfortable restriction. You're restrained because restraint is easy, not because you've chosen it in the face of temptation. The Stoics understood this. Marcus understood this better than anyone. He wrote, "Courage is the virtue that protects all the others." Not in those exact words, but that was his meaning. Courage is foundational, it's the prerequisite, everything else builds on it. The problem is we've lost sight of what real courage looked like in Marcus's eyes. We think of it as the absence of fear. The Stoics knew better. They knew courage was action taken despite fear. Courage was choosing principle when comfort was available. Marcus didn't just read about courage in the scrolls of old philosophers, he lived it. For 10 years he led the Roman legions against the Germanic tribes along the Danube frontier. These were brutal campaigns, endless battles, disease in the camps, soldiers dying of plague. Marcus could have stayed in Rome, he could have delegated command. Instead he was there, leading from the front, writing meditations by lamplight in a military camp. Building a philosophy not in safety, but in the face of chaos and death. This matters because his ideas about courage weren't theoretical, they were tested. When Marcus wrote about facing difficult circumstances, he wasn't speaking from a library, he was speaking from the trenches. The Marcomannic Wars shaped his understanding of what it means to be brave. He saw men panic, he saw men break. He saw men choose integrity when they could have chosen survival, and he learned. He built his philosophy on what he witnessed. But here's what most people miss. Marcus's greatest battles weren't against the Marcomanni, they were against himself. Meditations is an act of radical self-honesty. Every entry is like an internal audit, Marcus interrogating his own thoughts, catching himself in contradiction, calling himself out on weakness. This takes courage, real, everyday courage. We think of courage as dramatic, the soldier charging into battle, the whistleblower exposing corruption, the public stand for justice. But Marcus was talking about something deeper, the courage to look yourself in the mirror and admit you're afraid, the courage to write down your failures, the courage to say, "I was wrong. I did this out of ego, not principle. I compromised today." That's Stoic courage, the internal kind, the kind nobody sees. When you read Meditations, you're reading someone's private journal of moral struggle. Marcus had all the power in Rome, the emperor, ultimate authority, and every night he was wrestling with himself, checking himself, making sure he hadn't acted out of arrogance, making sure he hadn't let comfort override principle. That takes more courage than commanding armies. There's another kind of courage Marcus was obsessed with, and it's the kind we need now, moral courage, standing by your principles when everyone around you is compromising. Marcus was surrounded by people who would have done anything to please him. Senators, generals, courtiers. The gravitational pull toward excess, cruelty, and expedience was enormous, but he resisted. He held the line. Moral courage is harder than physical courage in some ways. When the enemy charges, adrenaline helps. You react, You survive. When everyone around you is doing what's easy and you're doing what's right and nobody's watching and nobody would know if you bent the rules, that requires a different kind of strength. That's where most people fail. That's where most of us fail. Marcus knew this. He wrote about the importance of protecting your integrity, not for God, not for reward in the afterlife, but because your integrity is all you actually control. Your reputation can be destroyed, your possessions can be taken, your position can be stripped away. The one thing nobody can take is your self-respect, unless you give it away. And every time you compromise your principles for convenience, you give it away. This is why he said, never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. That's the whole philosophy in one sentence. No amount of money is worth it. No status is worth it. No relationship is worth it. Lose your self-respect and you've lost everything that actually matters. So how do you build this courage? You can't just decide to be brave and suddenly become brave. Courage is a habit, it's a muscle. It atrophies if you don't use it, and it grows stronger with practice. The Stoics used a technique called negative visualization. Imagine losing everything. Imagine failure. Imagine people turning against you for doing the right thing. Sit with that discomfort. Don't push it away. Let it become familiar. When you've already imagined the worst outcome, actually facing it becomes less terrifying. You've rehearsed the scenario. You know you can handle it. Practice voluntary discomfort. This sounds extreme, but it's not. Skip the coffee one morning, take a cold shower, walk a mile without a jacket, do something small that's slightly uncomfortable, not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself that discomfort isn't dangerous. It's just sensation. Once you know you can tolerate small discomforts, facing bigger challenges becomes possible. Have hard conversations, not aggressively, not to vent, but honestly. If someone in your life is behaving in a way that bothers you, tell them. If your boss is asking you to do something unethical, say no. If you've made a mistake, admit it. These conversations are terrifying. They might damage the relationship. The other person might be angry. And that's exactly why you have to do them, because doing them builds the courage muscle, because every time you have that conversation, the next one gets easier. Most importantly, choose integrity over comfort, not once, not when you feel like it, as a practice, as a commitment. When the easy option and the right option diverge, you already know which one to choose. Make that choice daily, in small things and large things, because courage, like cowardice, is contagious. Every time you compromise, you make the next compromise easier. Every time you stand firm, you make the next stand firmer. Marcus didn't have a perfect life. He didn't wake up every morning radiating fearless confidence. He struggled, he doubted. He was human, but he kept choosing to show up, to lead, to be honest with himself, to protect his integrity. Night after night in a military camp on the frontier, he wrote himself notes about how to be brave. Now it's your turn. Identify one hard conversation you've been avoiding, one truth you haven't spoken, one place where you've been compromising your principles for comfort. Have that conversation this week. Not aggressively, not cruelly, just honestly. Marcus wrote his hardest truths to himself every single night. You can manage one honest conversation, and when you have it, notice what happens. Notice that you survive. Notice that your self-respect grows. Notice that the next conversation gets easier. Because that's the secret Marcus knew. Courage isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you build every single day. Every honest conversation, every choice for integrity, every moment you choose your principles over your comfort, that's Stoic courage. That's what held the Roman Empire together. That's what can hold your life together. As Marcus taught us, never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. That's the foundation. That's the virtue that makes all the others possible. Build it. Practice it, live it, and subscribe to see what we uncover about Stoicism next.